Feedback is a central feature of life processes. It lets organisms sense how they're doing and what they can do to improve their current state of affairs. That's like how a chicken, who wants food, is going to try to find it. Negative feedback has two elements. The first is a device that tells you the difference between your desired state of affairs and the current state of affairs. That's the chicken being hungry. The second is responsive machinery that reduces that distance, like how chickens utilize their good eyesight and intelligence to find food. Positive feedback is feedback that widens the distance between current and desired instead of closing it. A chicken lays eggs and goes about its daily business in order to produce a final product, another chicken. The cell's ultimate production goal is also itself. Floor supervisor enzymes evaluate the performance of a system and make necessary adjustments to ensure the continuation of the cell. Here are the 4 steps of a negative feedback loop. Its first step starts with a production line, such as for our enzymes making an amino acid. Second, the controller of the feedback loop notes an excessive buildup of product. Next, it stops production and waits for the inventory to drop. And fourth, when the production level is low again, production is started. An allosteric enzyme is a special kind of enzyme that changes shape in response to a signal. To demonstrate what it does, I'll use chicken egg production as an analogy. Let's say the chickens are a production line, and the eggs are the product made by the production line. Right now, we have a fine amount of eggs. But if the eggs started to build up, say, we had too many eggs. If this were a production line like it was a cell, we'd have an allosteric enzyme. And it would shut down production by going into the nest box and changing shape to keep the chickens from laying eggs. It would change shape in response to a signal, the product, and in this case, an egg. This would prevent any more product from being produced until production had dropped. How does it do this? An allosteric enzyme has 2 docks, one working site that starts production, and one site where a chemical signal enters. When both are open, it is in its active shape. If a chemical signal does enter, it shuts down the working site, thus shutting down production. This is its regulatory shape. What is the chemical? The product itself. In an allosteric enzyme, there are usually 4 to 6 proteins in a complex of subunits. These can change shape to increase efficiency in response to a higher substrate concentration. Let's call this chicken food the substrate, and each chicken a subunit. At first, there's only one chicken eating the food. The other chickens notice, and this causes them to also begin eating. This causes more substrate to be consumed faster. Aren't they adorable? As the substrate drops off, they start to leave. Soon there's only one chicken left eating the food. Clusters of proteins also work in this manner. At first, one site is open. The substrate binding to that site causes more sites to open, just like more chickens coming. This causes efficiency in the processing the substrate. These regulatory proteins also act as switches. A signal causes them to change shape, which affects their functioning. Allosteric receptors. These are embedded in the cell membrane. They match particular signal molecules, which cause them to release a chemical signal inside the cell. This signal could be a hormone that was made in the brain, ovary, or thyroid, and that has traveled through the bloodstream to facilitate chemical activities in cells all over the body. Local level control controls the making of a product. That's like the allosteric enzyme in the nest box. But higher level control stops production of the machinery that makes the product. For example, if someone was getting too many eggs from their hens, they wouldn't buy more chicks, saving much more time and energy. In the cell, this works by gene regulators stopping DNA from being copied, so no enzymes that make a particular product are made. Gene regulators are also allosteric and sit on DNA when a certain signal is present. This signal is the overproduced product. Higher level control saves the cell energy and has broader effects. A bacterium moves using long flagella. When the flagella rotate clockwise, the bacterium flops around. This is called tumbling. When the flagella rotate counterclockwise, it makes the bacteria move forward in a straight line. This is called running. Chickens spend most of their time scratching around somewhat aimlessly. This is like tumbling. When the chickens find food, however, they head as straight as possible for it, or run, making self-corrections along the way, using running and tumbling. This is actually how bacterium find food. Applied to a chicken's very similar method of finding food. Self-correcting processes such as these compensate for deviations in the path to food. Single cells of Dictyostelium discoidum, or slime mold, can communicate at a molecular level by diffusing a chemical signal. This causes it to form an aggregate community that works together through molecular communication. A spider building a web uses different kinds of feedback. Lockstep sequences dictate unvarying procedures and do not use feedback. If-then sequences are pre-planned but permit sensory input. Trial and error says repeat what works and stop what doesn't. Simulation is making a mental model and imagining the consequences. The ichneumon wasp parasites orb-weaving spiders. It's a larva, inside the spider, gets the spider to build a platform for the larva by releasing a certain chemical into the spider's body. Toxoplasma gondii, another parasite, infects rats and causes them to have an altered perception of risk, as the parasite needs cats as a part of its life cycle. Toxoplasma gondii can also infect humans, can cause harm to fetuses or those with drastically weakened immune systems. Chickens can also be infected by Toxoplasma gondii. Cascading is a positive feedback loop in biology, where more triggers more. A metaphor for cascading could be an opera, where one note summons more and more cast members. Another could be chickens. Usually one chicken starts clucking, then another, then another. An ecology loop is a huge ecosystem that functions as a huge feedback loop. One example is a pond, where algae growth increases organic waste, resulting in more bacteria, which decrease oxygen. Fish correct this system by reducing algae growth. In this case, the fish is the governor of the system, and the governor usually being the largest organism in the ecosystem. South American fire ants have a sting that can kill small mammals, and they tend to nest in electrical wiring, causing fires. To control them, phorid flies that prey upon fire ants have been introduced. They cause chaos in fire ant colonies, helping local ants gain an advantage. A phorid fly flying over a fire ant colony has the same effect as a hawk flying over a chicken.